Everyone, thank you for your patience. Tonight I'm going to discuss immigration. I'm going to look at skilled worker program in terms of compliance. Those who have sponsorship license, how they can remain compliant. If you want to check the topic is out there on the screen, on the scrolling graphic. So I'm going to take my time to explain these things because there are a lot of stuff happening around us. And most times we are here to assist people to understand the law, to know their rights, and obviously to make sure that they don't fall victims of the law, because the law is no respecter of any individual, whether you are a corporate entity or an individual. So tonight is your opportunity to enjoy free legal advice, proudly sponsored by CITI Law Solicitors. And what I'm going to do here is quite beneficial to everyone, whether you're a worker or you're a sponsorship license holder, because lots of licenses have either been suspended or revoked, and therefore I'm going to look at some of the compliance policies, why people sometimes will have the trouble of having their license suspended or revoked. But obviously, whenever those things happen, there is obviously a right to sometimes go for administrative review and go for judicial review. But you don't want to find yourself in that situation. And that is why tonight is an opportunity for most of us to learn the law. So as I do always, I want to entreat you to share the link with your friends and family members. And obviously, I'm going to take my time to give background and update of the law, and eventually I will delve slowly into the main topic for tonight. So you out there watching me, you can share the link, just invite a friend, let them be aware that we are here once again, CITI Law Solicitors, to continue the Legal Hour program. Tomorrow, obviously, MC Chaka is going to be here, and we're going to have the wonderful show in a Twi language, wherein I will also have another opportunity to explain whatever I'm going to explain here tonight in a Twi language. So if English is a problem for you, hey, you're free to join us tomorrow. Or better still, you can join us. It's a learning curve. And then learn something tonight, and then you can also join us tomorrow when we start the Twi section. So guys, tonight is going to be something quite interesting because it's something that is quite common, and sometimes I hear and I get clients calling that their main sponsors license have either been revoked or suspended, and they are quite stranded, or some, for whatever reason, they've also been suspended from work or be dismissed. So there are a whole lot of challenges that people go through whenever some of these issues cropped up. And it's for that reason that I'm taking my time to gradually explain to people how they can avoid some of these problems. And that is why you don't have to be so selfish by watching alone, but also share with your friends. Those of you who also want to join on the YouTube, I'm going to mention all the various channels that you can watch. Now, if you want to watch me tonight, you can watch on Facebook. We have 3 main channels there that you can watch this show. You can watch it on the CITI Media TV Facebook platform or channel. You can watch it on CITI Law Solicitors Facebook channel. You can watch the show, my own personal profile, Thomas Bebel. You can also watch it there on Facebook. And then YouTube, we have CITI Law Solicitors YouTube channel. You can also watch it there. And obviously, if you want to listen to radio, we have the CITI Media Radio right at the corner that you can also listen to. So you have no excuse to miss this show tonight. So at this juncture, I'm just going to go for a short commercial break to share the link, and I want you to do the same. And eventually, I will take my time within the next 20 minutes to crack this topic. And then I will give viewers the opportunity, as always, to ask legal questions. This is where we teach the law. So I'm doing immigration, but you will be free to ask any question under family, employment, personal injury, clinical negligence, civil litigation, and of course, any legal question that will be lingering in your mind. This is your opportunity to ask those questions. So please don't go away as I go on this short commercial break. Hi, good evening everyone. Thank you once again for your patience. So as I said from the beginning, I'm going to take my time to discuss this interesting topic by looking at how, as a skilled worker sponsor, you can remain compliant, meaning that how you can obviously maintain your license and also retain your staff, because the two work together. If the license holder loses the license or gets it suspended or revoked, then all the staff or the workers automatically, within 60 days, if they don't get their visas switched, then they also get those visas revoked. So you realize that the two parties are in it together. If something happens, especially to the sponsor, then even if it is no fault of the worker, which is a skilled worker, he or she gets to suffer the consequence of any punishment that is meted out to the license holder. And it's for this reason that people who are workers being sponsored needs to be very careful that they are all in it together. If something happens to the sponsor, the worker, though has not done anything wrong, ends up suffering. If in most cases, because I get people calling, especially those whose sponsors have had issues and they are all over the place with 2 calendar months to switch, or someone will say otherwise, they end up going back to Egypt. And it's for this reason that I'm going to take my time to explain the law, to let people know there are issues there that if they don't seek to protect it and follow the laid out policies, then some of these contingencies or some of these problems can unfold wherein all the parties involved could suffer. So tonight I'm going to take my time, obviously, as I do always, to make sure that people understand the law. Now, to start with, let me just give a background to what I am saying here. Now, the background to what I'm saying here is that I'm looking at how one who has a sponsorship license, it simply means that you could be an IT company, you could be a building and construction company, you've recruited staff from abroad or in country, you have surveyors, or you could even be a company, car maintenance company. As a welder, you've recruited people from abroad. Or most famously, a healthcare company recruited either care workers or nursing assistants from abroad. And so all these companies who have been issued licenses under the licensing scheme introduced by Home Office in 2020, they do have what they call sponsorship responsibilities. But before I go there, in most cases, this whole issues or these problems normally emanates from what they call illegal working. And you find out that even in January, Rishi Sunak introduced a new task force where they have recruited additional 200 immigration enforcement officers. And those officers will be going around visiting companies, visiting workplaces, and in most cases, when they apprehend somebody working illegally, then that person will be subject to what they call civil penalty. And in most cases, if you are caught to have employed somebody who does not have the right to work, then you could be subject to a penalty up to £20,000 per person. And I have dealt with some of those cases, and it's very, very strict, what they call in law, strict liability, which means that it is very, very difficult to find an excuse, especially when you have not followed due process or procedure, either through recruiting or doing some checks before recruiting the person. So that is where sometimes you have this background, people being recruited and working sometimes without what has been enshrined in law in terms of the documentation. So there is a power there, there is a force. The Prime Minister has made it quite clear how he's going to frustrate people who ends up working somehow illegally. And in fact, at the moment, I'm still going ahead giving the background. You find out that this ministerial powers now extends to where immigration officers are now sharing information with banks. So obviously people who may have problem with their status could have their bank accounts being closed if they are receiving wages through those accounts. You have, obviously, it has been in the past with even driving licenses, but because of the enforcement powers where ministers are having ministerial meeting on regular basis, and the task force which has been introduced, so those with licenses without either their papers sometimes having expired or whatever, can get those licenses revoked, driving licenses. And then you have those even renting accommodation, having challenges. So you have all this stuff going on. But more importantly, it is the case that those who have been given sponsorship licenses to sponsor workers have huge responsibility in terms of their sponsorship duties to the Home Office. And the reason they have these huge duties is the fact that if you look at the sponsorship license, it's like a franchise where the Home Office is sharing a power. Some of its powers have been delegated to sponsors. And those of you who have been sponsored under the license, you find out that that power is so great to the extent that once a sponsor have issued certificate of sponsorship to a candidate, and that candidate meets mandatory requirements which have been laid out, then in most cases, caseworkers who are enforcing and processing applications have absolutely no discretion to refuse applications, provided those mandatory requirements are satisfied, like police check, TB, English language requirement. So you see that these sponsors have huge powers. They have a power to decide whoever they want to bring to this country to work for them. And as I said that somewhere last year when I gave the statistics here, I made it clear, and it said the case that we had about quarter of a million shortage, where vacancies are not being filled. So there is said the need for these sponsors to continue to recruit globally. So this is the huge power that has been put into their hands. But in life, we find out that whenever you have a power, then you have huge responsibility. Because we find out that when Boris Johnson decided to use his power to restrict people to stay in their homes and not to enjoy themselves, then he had the same responsibility to ensure that he doesn't enjoy himself whilst he's number 10. And when he found out that he was enjoying himself, that power came down with responsibility. And then it became a whole lot of issue which eventually led to his resignation. But so I'm just trying to explain what power means in terms of sponsors who have licenses. And because of this power. That is why they also have this huge responsibility. So I'm going to go through some of the responsibilities or the duties and how these breaches can also affect workers. Because sometimes some workers feel that if something happens to the sponsor, then maybe they can seek asylum, maybe they can get their papers. And some are so naive. But in the end, even though it is through no fault of theirs, they still end up getting into a lot of problems where people may have to end up going back to Egypt. So I'm going to take my time to explain. Now, obviously, there is an audit that Home Office can carry out. And that audit can be the pre-application stage or during the period that one have the license or during the period that that person is applying for renewal after 4 years. So those of you who have just joined me, I'm looking at sponsorship license. So you have responsibility even before you apply for the license, before you are even granted a license. You have responsibility during the course of you recruiting people and giving them jobs here to work under your license. And then that audit can also be carried out either at the stage where you're renewing your license. And the data that I have before I came to this studio shows that as many as about 400 licenses have been revoked and about 315 have been suspended. So you see that just in the month of December alone, so you see that there are huge numbers of licenses being revoked and suspended. And when that happens, most of these workers who have traveled from far in a hope that they were going to work for maybe 5 years, 3 years or whatever, and eventually end their certain status, then tend to suffer. But sometimes it is not because people want to end up having these problems at their doorstep, but it's ignorance. And it is for this reason that tonight I'm taking my time to explain some of these laws to people free, so that people can understand the power that they possess and the huge responsibilities that comes with it, and how they will be able to balance the two to the extent that they can also maintain their workforce without getting this license revoked or suspended, and these workers getting their visas either revoked or suspended or being removed in consequence. So I've said that there are 3 stages that these audits can be carried out, and then eventually I'll go to the actual duties itself. So the first stage is that when you apply for a license, Home Office have power or discretion to visit your premises, or sometimes to carry out virtual meetings or investigations or interviews, wherein they will look into your HR recruitment processes, your filing in terms of how you are able to maintain record keeping for your employees, and how you are able to also monitor when their visas expired. So even at the stage where you are making these applications, and I have some of my clients that we've made applications for them to get sponsorship license. Some of them have been duly interviewed, and eventually they've been granted these licenses because they are quite familiar with the rules and the policies and what is required when that audit is to be carried out. So that's the first stage. So if you miss that stage, it means that you will not even get a license. Sometimes when I have clients that they come for consultations and you want to help them to apply for a license, and then they feel that it is something so easy because there are a lot of applications that are either being rejected or refused because of this reason. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here to obviously give free legal advice. So that's the first stage. The second stage is that even after you've had this license, Home Office is still interested in your recruitment processes, your record keeping, and how you are also keeping track and monitoring these workers. So again, in the course of this process, at this second stage, there can also be a site visit where these documents could be inspected. And sometimes it's even triggered where maybe somebody is working illegally in that business, and then there is a civil penalty given to the employer, and that triggers further investigation concerning the license. And those who know some of these rules, they are quite strict when it comes to employing. I have a client that had just few issues under his visa because Home Office has made some mistake, and the sponsor has been very insistent that he's not going to allow that person to work until that visa has been corrected by Home Office, because they feel that they have huge responsibility. So when my client was complaining bitterly that they are being too strict and difficult, I took my time to explain, you know why they do this? Because they have huge responsibility to ensure that they don't allow you to work illegally. Working illegally doesn't necessarily mean that you are living here illegally. It could mean that even doing the job that is different from the visa that you have, or working for a different company from the one that has sponsored you. So that's the second stage where this audit can be carried out. The last stage is where one applies. Most people think that once you get this license, they are all over the place, and sometimes I keep smiling because that license in 4 years, you need to renew it. And that is where we know how Home Office operates, because we've been in this street for a while. Sometimes Home Office will be watching. They are waiting for you to bring in your application for renewal. That's when they will start asking for a whole lot of documents. And therefore, after 4 years, we might have a lot of people having their licenses revoked. And unfortunately, people who may have 5 years and waiting to get their CITI status may end up getting into serious troubles, because that license is only valid for 4 years and needs to be renewed. So that's another issue with this audit. So it means that at the renewal stage, there is no need for them to even come to your premises to carry out audit, because they will be doing the audit from the office. So having explained the pre-license stage, maintaining the license through record keeping and all that, and then the renewal stage, stages where these audits could be carried out, and the consequence of not meeting these sponsorship duties is that that license can either be suspended or revoked. So the next stage, I'm going to look at the sponsorship duties, which if one fails to fulfill them, then there are numerous of them, then that license can be revoked, either through audit check by site visit or the renewal stage. So we have huge stages to go through. And sometimes we've had clients that we've applied licenses for them, and then they are all over the place, and I keep smiling because it will come to a stage where there could be challenges, especially when you are renewing that license. So let me just, at this point, move to the duty itself, where there are huge challenges here. So if you have just joined me tonight, I'm looking at, if you can check the topic on the screen, you see that I'm looking at how to remain compliant as a skilled worker license holder. I'm doing this because there are a lot of people, workers, who may end up suffering. And there are so many stuff going on, and this thing is relatively new. A lot of people don't know, even people who are holding licenses. It's like getting a driving license and then not knowing how to follow the driving rules. And it's possible, unlike driving license, where you go to do the test, and then you do the theory test, you pass, and then you go for the practical test where you perform driving, and then you pass, and then eventually get your driving license. There are people that have consulted us that we've applied licenses for them. They have the license, but they have no knowledge how licenses should operate, and they are operating them. And mistakes are being made, and they are still going ahead. And eventually, it happens that they either have to renew, or there is a site visit, and then there is a problem. And then the workers, who are also all over the place, thinking that sometimes when I hear some of the stuff, thinking that when there is an issue, they are excluded. No, you are not. You will be the first person to suffer. So I'm quickly going to go into those who have to perform these duties. And obviously, in most cases, I know that people end up suffering through no fault of theirs. I want to acknowledge people, but I can't see comments, but I can see most of you out there watching. If you want me to acknowledge you, I've seen Sophia Song, who have given thumbs up. I have Cynthia Solomon. Cynthia, how are you? My regards to Jonathan. He's been very wonderful and helpful. I have Ubadai Camille. Ubadai Camille is probably somebody who have just joined us for the first time. Those of you watching us from the YouTube, I cannot acknowledge you, but hey, shout out to you out there. So I'm taking my time to explain this compliance about this sponsorship, because we've had cases where people's licenses are being revoked, and then we're having to review and see how best they could be helped and all that. Daniel Ohene is on it. So Mr. Daniel Ohene is also watching. Thank you for joining us. So we have huge issues here, and because this thing is relatively new, I remember when I started making so much noise about how people should get licenses and to be sponsored, people were thinking that it was true. But hey, today we have a lot of people who have these licenses, that are recruiting people. They have workforce that they need to do their jobs for them. But we've gotten to a stage where if it's not well managed, then it's like people sitting on a time bomb that eventually it's going to blow up on their faces. And a whole lot of people are going to suffer. And it's for this reason that I always say that most times when I'm here giving update of the law, is the fact that we are in practice. So day in, day out, we are seeing what is happening, how Home Office is harassing people, and all that. And then we take privilege in impacting knowledge to you out there, especially for those of you who have been proud followers of this channel. So, moving a little bit into details about these duties. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through most common ones. The most common one is that most times people are even given a job code and performing different tasks. That in itself could also be a breach. People who have been given, I always advise my clients, be sure when your client, your staff is coming before you give an offer letter, because obviously if they are late to resume work after 28 days from when you have offered them that job, then you realize that the border force will be waiting out there. And once the flight lands, they are looking for those they can harass and stop them from coming in. Even though you have the power, you've given them a certificate of sponsorship, visas has been granted, but the border force will still be waiting out there for some of these mistakes to pounce on and find a way to send that person back. So when people are giving out these offer letters, I always advise them, be very mindful of these 28 calendar days, because for those of you coming from abroad, it could present huge problems, and most people don't even know. It's like people driving without knowledge of driving, because somehow they have driving license and they have no knowledge of the driving rules. The next point is record keeping itself. People need to keep records of those that they have sponsored, because the absence of it in itself is a breach of sponsorship duty. And obviously, there are particular specific records that needs to be kept under the duties. And therefore, if those records are not kept, then again, it presents huge problem to those holding these licenses. People with licenses also need to look at how they can monitor and track how people with visas are going to run out. And again, this is where sometimes if there is a slight problem, then there is civil liability penalty where people are fined up to 20,000 just because you have no system in place to monitor and track when one visa is to run out. And then I want to have clients who are so upset that their employers are harassing them because their visa is running out. I always take the opportunity to explain to them, it's not because they don't like you at the workplace. It's because if they don't do it, Home Office is going to come after them and they could be fined up to £20,000. And that's why you see why that whenever people's visas are about to expire, if they have not renewed those visas and they have no pending application, then straight away they will be suspended and sometimes dismissed. Why? Because your employer doesn't want to pay £20,000 to Home Office. And I have personally dealt with some of those cases, and it's so difficult to defend it. And that's why you find out that some of these employers are quite strict. But of course, it is for this reason that you need to monitor and track as part of your sponsorship duty. The other factor is reporting. You need to report if the employee is not coming to work for more than 10 days. You need to report if the job has changed. You need to report even sometimes when they are off sick for more than 10 days. So there are huge reporting conditions that license holders need to abide by. You need to report if someone has left the business and is no longer with you. So we have all these reporting conditions enshrined in law, and therefore if you are not following them, then there is the possibility that either at the renewal stage or on a site visit, that license can either be suspended or revoked. So having explained the monitoring and tracking, the recruitment where you have the HR system in place to ensure your recruitment processes and procedures and how documentation is put in place for proper record keeping. And then you have also the reporting conditions which I have just explained. Then the next stage is where I will normally call the watershed. Because by the description of watershed, it means that the water falls and then it splashes all over the place. That is what in legal terminology we say watershed. It means that once the license is revoked or suspended, then what happens to all those who have been sponsored under it? This is where people are given up to 60 days to look for a new sponsor. And in most cases, let me tell you why sometimes it's so impractical for people to be able to switch within those 60 days. Because one, in most cases, someone might even have a license, but they don't have allocation or slots. And these days, even when you apply for a slot, you need to either, since I get some of my clients, sometimes when I do allocations, they just grant it within days. And those who want to manage it themselves, they do it and then they reject it. And I say, oh, it's been rejected. I keep smiling. Because these days, even when you want to get new slots, most cases they will ask you to justify it. And therefore, if your existing sponsor's license has been suspended or revoked and you have 60 days to run around, in most cases, even those who may want to help by recruiting might not have the slots available. And if they were to apply for it, by the time they even get a slot, your visa would have run out. So you see that we have a problem here that affects both the license holder, and that same problem also affects the skilled worker. So my advice to most of these skilled workers is that whenever you have these issues in-house, then it's important that you're also mindful of the fact that if that sponsorship license is revoked, then indirectly that visa you are holding has become useless because it's also going to be revoked if you are not able to jump within 60 days. So those are the consequences that people will end up facing if their main sponsor's licenses are suspended and revoked. So tonight, I have taken my time to explain why licenses are being revoked, why there is a task force to go around checking employers and checking illegal working, and people being given civil liability penalties in terms of home office enforcement where they've apprehended illegal people working illegally. And sometimes working illegally does not necessarily mean that person doesn't have papers or right to remain in this country. They might have it, but there are a whole lot of technicalities that I don't want to bore you with the legal jargons. But of course, It is for this reason that I have taken my time to give this free legal advice. At this point, I'm going to open the phone lines for those who have legal questions and may want to ask questions. And normally when I'm here, I always say that this is where we bring you the update. And I say that I am not a doctor. You see, the doctors going on strike yesterday. my friend or cousin called me yesterday and he said, I didn't go to work today. I said, why? He said, because we are on strike, near doctors. So they are on strike. Of course, they do immense job. I'm not a doctor, so I can't give you prescription or give you diagnosis of your sickness. But I'm a doctor in immigration because I know the law. And obviously, this is opportunity that if you have any legal question, this is where I can also give you diagnosis and give you free prescription. So I'm going to open the phone lines for those of you out there who may want to ask questions on whatever I have discussed, even if it's falls outside this and it's within my competence and the jurisdiction, I will be able to answer questions for people. But it's important that we are mindful of these issues that I have discussed here, because there are a whole lot of issues going around, and most people are now sitting on time bombs because of the fact that they are so naive and ignorant of their own sponsorship duties. And you have workers who also don't know that sometimes when there is a time bomb, the bomb ends up affecting all of them. So if anybody has question, I have put the phone lines on the screen, and then people can obviously ask questions. If you have any legal question, I'll be very happy to discuss, to answer your question. If you have any contribution, you're also free to phone in. You don't have to mention your name. You can maintain your privacy and confidentiality. But if you have just joined me, as I have just repeated myself, I've been discussing how to be compliant or remain compliant as a license holder, and why that must be the case, because workers tend to suffer if the license is either suspended or revoked. And at this time, whilst I'm waiting for people who may want to call in to ask questions or make contribution, I'm going to advertise our sponsor. We have a sponsor who has been sponsoring this program, and it's no other than CITI Law Solicitors. CITI Law Solicitors specializes in the following areas of law: immigration law. Of course, most of you will testify the amount of sponsorship licenses that we have been able to obtain for businesses to help them to recruit from abroad and to manage their business and not to be short of staff. So if you have any business and you want a sponsorship license, you can count on us. We'll assist you to get a license. If you have a church and you want to recruit a minister to come and pray for us on Sundays, and I enjoy worship so that we can all worship and give glory to the Lord, we can help you to apply for license so that you can recruit a minister from abroad. Then we can all be joyous in the Lord. So we do that. We don't just get licenses for healthcare workers or companies. We get for churches as well. And immigration is an area that we specialize in all the areas. Nationality law, people who want to naturalize and become British, those who still have issues under the EU settlement scheme. The EU law is still there indefinitely. We're still dealing with those cases. And those of you who want to make application to bring your children from abroad, your spouses, husband and wife from abroad, we are here to also assist you. Those of you who want to bring skilled workers, I always say that there is a difference between getting a license for the business and also getting people from abroad to come in. Some people have been issued certificate of sponsorship, and the applications have been refused. Again, they don't know the requirements therein. So we can assist with all those areas under the immigration law. Employment law, if you have been unfairly dismissed, or if you are being bullied and harassed at the workplace, again, we'll be there to assist you. And then if there is a problem in terms of those of you who are going through divorces and those who have not had the privilege to have contact with their children and you want to have that contact, put child arrangement order in place so that you can continuously see your child and be part of that child's life or those children's life as a father or mother. Will be able to assist you. If you are being harassed and they want to put non-molestation order or occupation order in place to remove that perpetrator who is subjecting you to domestic abuse in the house, we can also assist you under the family law. Personal injury and clinical negligence, we can assist you with your personal injury. If you ever had an accident at the workplace and it was not your fault, we can assist you. If you have motor offense or you were involved in motor accident and then you want to claim compensation for your injuries, we'll also assist you with those issues. Housing, if you are being evicted illegally, if you have damp and mold and you have disrepair problem, we can also assist you to claim compensation. So we have a whole lot of compensation to put money in your pocket. Entertainment, media and entertainment law. If you are being defamed, we can assist you. These days, people are writing stuff, lies about people on social media. We can ensure that those people can be brought to book by using the law. So don't let somebody tarnish your image. City law says we can protect that image for you. And that person may be liable to pay you compensation for tarnishing your image and peddling falsehood against you. So you see, City law says it's a one-stop where all your legal needs can be met. It's like going to the GP and then getting all your problems resolved there. And sometimes they can't resolve it, they signpost you to a consultant. But fortunately for City law sources, they will end up resolving all the problems. Hey guys, so if you have missed any part of this program tonight, you find it very interesting, exciting and insightful, this program is going to be on the City law sources media channels permanently, so you can watch them again and again and again. And obviously, our contact details are also there. And if for whatever reason you want to reach out to us with any legal problem after I've left the studio, you can continue to stay in contact and don't be a stranger. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight and for being part of this show. Tomorrow I'm going to be here once again with a famous MC Chaka, the only MC and a DJ with a swag, and then we're going to have the Chi section wherein people have opportunity to also ask questions in Chi. God bless you. God bless you for joining us tonight. God bless you. Thank you.